The Cubs are 4-0 in spring training games, and that means they're going to win the World Series, of course. No, but there are some things that we are going to be looking at as spring games continue. Here's my 5 top storylines for the Chicago Cubs in the 2025 spring training season. Hey, Cubs fans, Kyle Stanley here, the setup man, and I am back from Arizona. I had a blast over there, had a ton of fun seeing you guys engaging in with our content, all the raw video that we were posting from live at bats to batting practice to fielding practice. A lot of you were really asking for me to get a lot of things, and I did my best. On the very, very last day I was there, I finally got Shota to do some live at bats. Never saw Matt Shaw doing enough to be able to report anything new there. There was a few things I didn't see Cade Horton. And of course, the day that I leave, he throws to live batters. So I was bummed to not be able to see that. Heard he looked amazing. So there's a lot of things there that are going to be exciting as we watch Cade Horton, maybe like Ben Brown, Luke Little, these guys that had significant injuries in 2024. But before we get into all that, we are talking about my 5 top storylines today for the Chicago Cubs. And even before we get into that, I want to talk about a few things that are coming up here on the channel. Now, I'm recording this and posting this right as the Cubs game is starting. So apologies for getting this out so late today, but we just got back from Arizona last night, 10-hour drive. Give me a break. All right. Some things tonight. Tonight, first of all, right after the game, you're going to see my breakdown of the Kyle Tucker and Ryan Pressly Cubs debuts on our YouTube channel. Make sure you watch that after the Cubs game is done. And then second of all, we have this fun little thing going on here that's about to pop up on your screen. And it is a live space tonight. My very first live space. I've never done one of these on X, formerly known as Twitter. We're doing a spring training recap that's going to be at 7 Central Time. And that is, again, today, February 24th. So if you are on Twitter, if you're on X, and if you are one who likes to get into the spaces and chat and everything, I can't wait to do that with you guys tonight. So go ahead and join us there. Aside from that, the season is about to start. We have a lot of fun things we're working on in the background. You will see and you will hear more about that as we get closer to the season. But for now, I want to talk about my 5 spring training storylines, my top 5. And number 1, I don't think is any surprise. It is Nico's health. You saw him in the booth yesterday with Boog and JD. Reason being is because he's not doing enough baseball activities to be able to be on the field yet. He had that forearm surgery. Don't know exactly what happened there. And it was, of course, very under the rug during the off season. So there's a lot of things. If you ask Carter Hawkins at Cubs Con, he says, go up to Nico Horner and say he's not going to be ready for the season. And I bet you he's going to give you a look. Like, yeah, you can say that at Cubs Con, and you can say that Nico is a warrior, and you can say that he's a trooper, and he's going to be able to work as hard as he can to get ready for the season. But I know what I saw at spring training, and that is that it was very controlled throwing. I personally never saw him throw. I only saw video from other people that were there and catching him at the right time. But when you're in a controlled throwing environment, but then can't go out and do a simple throw to second base quite yet, that's where I'm like, all right, our season starts in like 3 weeks here, and you're telling me he's going to have not only is he going to be able to throw, but he's going to have a strong enough arm to turn a double play. I'm skeptical, very skeptical. I'm skeptical for even the start of the regular season in the States. It feels to me like Nico is going to be dealing with this into April. That's what and I'm not a doctor. I am not getting any sort of information from the team. This is strictly just the eye test. And the eye test told me that this guy needs a little bit more time. And so good thing Jed loaded this team up with depth. You got Nicky Lopez. You've got Gage Workman. You've got John Birdie. You got Vidal Brujan. Now, do any of those get you as excited as Matt Shaw and Nico Horner? Of course not. But when you look at that option, that pool of players, I'm a little more excited about that than Miles Mastrobuoni and Nick Madrigal. Just saying. So that's my number 1. Number 2, I'm interested to see, as Kyle Tucker just made his debut and he DH'd, the amount of time that Seiya Suzuki is going to get in right field. It's been pretty understood that Seiya Suzuki is going to be the primary DH for this team in a season where just coming off of a season where Craig Counsell didn't like to use just one DH. He kind of liked to rotate that. So the question then becomes, is Seiya going to get a lot of playing time in right field? And if he looks really good and has shown massive improvements, I saw at spring training him taking a lot of individual outfield defense, which shows me that he does not want to give up this outfield position that he probably takes a lot of pride in, right? So for that reason, I'm wondering, okay, if Seiya performs well in right field, makes some great plays, doesn't lose balls in the sun, doesn't look goofy out there, does Craig start to say, well, maybe Seiya can spell Ian Happ for a day in left field or spell Kyle Tucker for a few days in right field and not just be primary DH and get more outfield play? Am I creating this storyline? I don't think so, because if he was going to be primarily the DH, then why would he be taking so many reps in the outfield from a practice perspective? And then in the first few games, he's the primary right fielder. I don't think I'm looking too much into this. I think this is something that they want to give him a chance. And if he takes advantage of that chance, then he might get more opportunities during the regular season. We shall see. The third is the battle for the fifth starter. And it seems like every single season with every single team, we wonder, hey, who's the fifth starter going to be? So I might even say the fifth/sixth starter, because there's been a lot of talks recently, and this isn't just a Cubs thing, but it's also a Major League Baseball thing of just, hey, we need to fill up 1,400-ish innings. Who are going to be the guys to get us there? So right now, when you look at this, I would say it's between four guys, assuming Javier Assad is healthy enough to get a few starts under his belt. I think that's all you'd be looking for, is maybe 3 starts from spring training. If he only gets 2, he probably, in my mind, would try to get maybe a bullpen spot and then get extended into potentially another starter spot. But if he's healthy and gets 3 starts, I think you've got Javier Assad, you got Jordan Wicks, you got Ben Brown, and then Colin Ray. Ben Brown is a guy that I have said multiple times, I really would rather see Ben Brown healthy in 60 appearances, spanning over 60 to 70 innings in high leverage situations, pumping 98 with that death ball or whatever you want to call it, out of the pen in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning. I'd rather see that, wait for it, than what we saw last year from Ben Brown, which was, hey, I'm dealing with this neck situation, and the more I go and the more I throw out there, the more it wears me down, and the more likely I'm not going to be able to make it past June of this season. So I think we're all in the same boat, right? Like, whatever is going to keep Ben Brown the lowest risk of health with the highest impact on the team. And if that means that, hey, he feels great, and he has told us, he told me on our interview, if you missed that, we'll link it down below. He said, I want to be a starter. He didn't say it as adamantly as Marcus Stroman. We'll say that. He wants to be a starter. Okay, if he's healthy, which he looked like he was in the practice that I got, and it looks like they're grooming him as a starter, because during these live at bats, if you were a reliever, you were facing between 3 to 4 batters in your first outing of the year. Ben Brown not only faced 6, which is what the starters were doing, but also in his second outing of the year of spring training in live batters practice, he did this 1 inning, then sit down, and then another inning, and then he was done. And that is also what only starters were doing. So it looks to me like the 5th starting role is up for the taking. And I mean, you talk about a ceiling. Ben Brown has the highest ceiling of all 4 of those guys that I listed. Javier Assad has a ton of reps with the Cubs, and so he seemed like he was the guy. Then Colin Ray comes in, and you think to yourself, is he a 5th/6th starter? Is he going to be a swing man? Maybe he's a 5th starter if one of these guys goes down as a just-in-case situation. But I look at it and I say, if you want to win now and Ben Brown is healthy, he's the guy. He's got to be the guy. 7 no-hit innings against the Brewers last year, right before he goes down. 6 one-hit innings against the Arizona Diamondbacks as a starter last year. Don't quote me on this. I think it was a 3.23 ERA. Those numbers jump off the page. Nothing else from Javier Assad, Jordan Wicks, or Colin Ray jumps off the page, except I'll caveat this. Javier Assad was like in the top 5 to 10 ERA leaders all of last year for like the first half of the season. And that was for qualifiers, but he just always was like, he's working into the fifth inning, but he's never quite getting through it. So for that reason, I like Ben Brown as the answer if he's healthy. Goes a little bit against what I've been saying, but now that I see where the organization sees him, I would say that that's probably what you're thinking. Number 4 is the arms race. Now I'm talking about the bullpen arms here, and this is going to be an extremely, extremely difficult decision for Tommy Hotovy and Tyler Zombro and crew. I ran into Tyler Zombro at the end of spring training, and I said, "How you enjoying Cubs spring training?" He goes, "Whew, decisions." Okay, there's lots of decisions to be made. Like this is going to be. I don't envy Hotovy or Zombro right now. And I don't know who all is going to be a part of that decision, but I do know that based on what Tyler told me, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. You got guys like Ben Heller, Brad Keller. Who else did they bring in? Phil Bickford. I can't even name all the guys that I can even off the top of my head right now. I can't even think of half the guys because they just signed so many, from the Caleb Thielbars, Eli Morgans, Ryan Presley, Ryan Brazier. All these guys are going to probably be locks. Now, a lot of people are like, well, Caleb Thielbar, do you want that to be your lefty? Tyler Zombro thinks very highly of Caleb Thielbar. Okay. He actually told me when I asked him who's the one guy not a lot of people are talking about that might make a really big impact on the Cubs bullpen this year. He said Caleb Thielbar. Then you look at a guy like Luke Little, who has just the highest ceiling in the world, was not healthy last year, but aside from a couple outings, was solid outside of those couple outings, and pumps 97, 98, sometimes even touching 100. And you're like, oh man, that's tough to not put in the bullpen. So the question is going to come down to, in my mind, will the Cubs go for the guys that are going to give them the best chance to win in April right away? Or are they going to give the chance to the guys that are out of options that probably won't stick around in the organization if they are asked to stay on a minor league contract? Guys like Phil Bickford, guys like Brad Keller. Brad Keller the other day was pumping 98 at spring training. You see that, you go face the, let's just say the Brewers right now, and the Cubs don't put him on the 26-man roster, and he says, I'm gonna go ahead and take my chances, and I want to be back in free agency. What if the Brewers go and get him, and then he's pumping 98 against us for 5-6 solid innings in Milwaukee later on in the season? That's the decisions that have to be made here. And basically, if a guy like Brad Keller does not make the team, he can stay with the Cubs. He can stay in the organization. But if he's looking good enough, he's going to want a major league position. That's the way that I look at it. So I don't envy these decisions that need to be made. I do hope, hope that the Cubs will go for the best 26 men that will help them to win in April, because good Lord, the schedule in April is astronomical in terms of difficulty. Holy cow. And don't quote me, but it's like everywhere you look, 7 against the Dodgers, 7 against the Diamondbacks, 7 against the Mets, or I don't even, I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's just like, wow, this could be like you're okay with a double-digit loss month in April. So or even a 500 April, or even just barely below 500. So there's a lot of things that I think, as a fan, I don't want the Cubs looking back on April, looking back on May, and saying, we wish we would have just made the moves that would have made this team the best, rather than cross our fingers that these guys worked out. Meanwhile, Ben Brown and Luke Little and Daniel Palencia and all these guys that have the highest ceiling, they have options. So we just sent them down because they have options. So it's a difficult part of the business of baseball that I don't envy at all. And then lastly, is Jed still working? And what I mean by that is, the starting rotation could potentially use an upgrade. I don't think that they're still going for that, but I do see one glaring, I would call it gray area, and that is the 26th man on the roster, aka the fourth bench position. You have Carson Kelly, you have Justin Turner, and then you have Jon Berti. And that leaves one more bench role, that is currently between, if you just look at the guys on the roster, Nicky Lopez, Vidal Brujan, Gage Workman, and then Travis Jankowski, which, by the way, was that not just the most random signing ever? You get rid of Alexander Canario. Yeah, I get it. He has no options. And yeah, I get it that Jankowski's on a minor league contract, but all the power, hasn't had much opportunity to succeed in the majors. Travis Jankowski is basically just like Juan Pierre with a few more home runs. I don't know. It was a weird move. But the question is, at $215 million, which puts the Cubs 23 to 24 million below where they were at the end of the season last year, is there a potential extra guy out there, bench guy, that we haven't been talking about that Jed's going after? Few guys that are still free agents. I'll name them off. Adam Duvall, outfielder. Aaron Hicks, outfielder. JD Martinez, you're probably not putting him in the field. He's probably DH or just a bench guy. How about Jose Iglesias? How's this guy not been signed yet? You got Nick Castellanos saying that Jose Iglesias was the MVP of the NL based on the number of wins that were created for a team. How is he not signed with anyone? I would love if the Cubs went and got him. You look at the current situation, if Gage Workman is your quote-unquote backup third baseman, which, by the way, he looks really good. The glove looks good. He had a home run the other day. He's vying for that spot. But Jose Iglesias, you get him on the team and you say, okay, Gage, sorry, back to Detroit you go. I believe it was Detroit. We got him for the Rule 5. And that's where he's at. He's a Rule 5 guy that I think a lot of people are just like, yes, Gage Workman is going to be on the 26-man roster. So that's our 26-man. I don't think it's that set. I really don't. So if Jose Iglesias especially comes in, then I think you are saying adios to Gage Workman. And then Whit Merrifield, another guy that has had a long career, very valuable career. He's not going to be the same guy. Put him in the same boat as Justin Turner. Probably going to be a clubhouse guy, probably going to help some of the infielders. I think he played a lot of outfield as well back in the day. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But this is a guy that I think would provide value from a leadership standpoint and also off the bench. So of those guys, who do you think, on the current 4, Jankowski, Lopez, Brujan, Workman, who is most likely to be that 26-man? And then do you think that Jed still has work left to do on the bench? Guys, check out all the stuff tonight. Join our space. Make sure you watch the breakdown of Ryan Pressly and Kyle Tucker. But for now, I'm going to go watch the Cubs game and put my arm on ice. We'll see you later, Setup Nation.